Qualcomm earnings.
Yeah, it was a big week for Qualcomm. I think everybody had eyes. Remember, we're coming off earnings palooza. We're coming off every company, not every, but legitimately the entire FANG, or now what Jim Cramer calls Mama.
I like that.
Meta stupid. Anyway, all reporting, and there were a lot of eyes on kind of like what's going on, and was this quarter going to be good? Was it going to be bad? We've had so much growth for many parts of tech, but the chip shortage has been back in focus in a big way. And so watching the semiconductor companies, whether that's been Intel, whether that's been AMD, and now of course Qualcomm, was all in focus. Qualcomm absolutely, positively hammered it on every front. On the revenue side, 43% year over year growth. On the earnings side, up 76% year on year. On the supply chain, not a lot of comments, but long and short, the company didn't seem to have a lot of problems with it. And having had the chance to talk to Cristiano Amon, the CEO, ahead of time, it seems like the company had a really good handle on its demand. It was working with its supply chain effectively, and it was able to meet the market demand for its products and be able to realize these kinds of numbers, Pat. The company really has in focus its QCT business. Now, prior to becoming CEO, that's what Cristiano was responsible for. You can definitely sense his passion for the past few years, whether that's been the adjacent businesses like IoT, automotive, and RF, and of course handsets with this onslaught of interest in 5G. And this being an area where the company is quickly looking to diversify beyond being known as the company that provides chips for mobile handsets, and really to being a bigger contributor to these large secular trends. And the company is showing it is able to do that. So quick breakdown, Pat, handsets continue to be the biggest part of the business. In this quarter, it was about 4.6 billion of the 7.733. So you could say, it's a handset focused company. But on the other hand, 38% now of the revenue from the QCT business is coming from its other three adjacent businesses, which is the RFFE, which we'll actually talk more about in the next segment as well, automotive, and IoT. And the company, Pat, now has four segments, well, almost $4 billion annual businesses, and three of them now are $1 billion a quarter plus businesses, and with huge growth. So in the fourth quarter, RF front end grew 45%, and now they're the number one in wireless RFFE. Automotive 44%, and IoT grew 66%. And now this QCT business is representing $27 billion a year. So I want to leave a little bit there for you because the company did make some announcements on some other things. But my big takeaway on their earnings, extraordinarily strong. The company is diversifying its business. It is growing at a good clip. It's managing its supply chain well, and it's in these right secular trend areas to be able to grow long term. And it's been a great first two quarters under the leadership of Cristiano Amon.
Yeah, it was really a somewhat of a repeat from a prior quarter, which was pretty awesome, right? One big thing they did is they did talk about the future, and essentially that they're going to have double-digit growth into the next year, which I thought was pretty awesome. The other thing that I really appreciated was a slide that they did where they compared what they had said in 2019 about FY22. They actually hit those numbers a year early. And the reason I thought that was important is if you remember back in maybe 2017, 2018, Qualcomm was not looked like a company according to its institutional investors who could hit and execute on those growth vectors, and basically they did, and they did it a year early. So, and I think that's super impressive. I think the other thing that I thought was interesting was that they had all this growth during a supply chain crisis. And Qualcomm has a very distributed manufacturing strategy. Okay, meaning they literally work with every fab on the planet. Okay, every foundry, and they also do some contract manufacturing out as well. A lot of people had looked at that earlier a few years back and said, boy, that's complex, that makes no sense, it increases risk. Well, I certainly think it's paying off at this point for them. Being such a large company, Qualcomm does have an advantage of having a very wide and deep supply chain, but their disaggregated supply chain and manufacturing strategy, I think, is really paying off.